Welcome to the course. I am Hossein and I will be your instructor in this course. In this course, we will learn how to build a real-world application using .NET and C Sharp. In these days, the C Sharp and the .NET are so important and you can learn it very easy. In this course, I call it the C Sharp programming full course from zero to hero. In the first episode, we will talk about the data type and variable. Okay, let's get started. In this episode, we will talk about the variable, data type, typecasting, and operator. Okay, what is a variable? C# is a strongly typed language, which means that the variable must be explicitly defined. Okay, and the compiler will throw an error if a value assigned or being assigned is not the data type specified. Okay, we will talk about the data type in C#. Okay, what are those data type in C#? They are int, long, float, double, bool, char, and string. And we will talk about how we can define a variable. Okay, let me enable my pen. Okay, in C Sharp, you can define a variable. First of all, you have to say what variable type you want to use. In C Sharp, they are the most important variable type. First of all is string, int, long, float, decimal, char, and boolean. Okay, and if you pay attention, we have two items, string and char. That the difference between these two is this is depend on the memory that they specify. And the second difference between these two is use the double quotation, but this one use single quotation. Okay, we use a string for example, item that we want. They are related to the character. Int, long, float, and decimal. We use it all these item for working with the numbers, and the char we are working with character, and the bool is related to true false item. Okay, and we will also talk about the typecasting. Typecasting is so important in the C Sharp because we have two type of casting: implicit casting and explicit casting. Implicit casting, we will also call it automatically casting, because the CLR will automatically convert the item to the other item, for example. And there's only one condition. In implicit, we use converting a smaller type to a larger type size. For example, char to int, into line, long to float, and float to double. But explicit casting, we call it manually. It means the sealer cannot manage it for you, because you should say, for example, it's related to situation that you want to converting a larger type to a smaller type. For example, you want to store a long or int, a long into a int, because the long is has a larger than int, and you will get an error. Okay, and the last subject is operator. Operator are used to perform operation on variables and value. We have four types of operator: arithmetic, assignment, comparison, and logical. Let's get start coding. Welcome back to the course. In this course, I will use Visual Studio 2022. At first, we will define a variable, and after that, we will say that what's the difference between a var and a variable type. And the section 2 is related to the implicit and explicit, and in the last, we will talk about the operator. Okay, in C Sharp, I told you that if you want to define a variable type, we have some important type. First is string, second one is int, float, decimal, and they are the main item, and char, and the last one is bool. I told you that the string and char related to the character. Int, float, decimal are we work for number, and the boolean is related to true and false. If you want to define a variable in C Sharp, I told you, first of all, you have to say what kind of variable type you want to use. At the first variable, I want to say I want to use a string. For example, I want to say my name is Hossein, and I want to store the Hossein in the variable of type string. I say name is Hossein. Okay, I told you, if I put a single quotation, what I will get an error. It say you cannot use an array on a list of character to use and store in a string. It's completely wrong. You should use double quotation. Okay, and if you want to print a variable or an everything in the output, you should use console write line. Okay, I say, hey, C sharp, hey, compiler, print the name for me. And if you want to run your program in the Visual Studio, you can press this button at the top, or you can use F5. I press F5, okay, and you say Hossein. Okay, if you want to say, for example, hey, I want to store or define a variable of type number. I say, hey, it's so easy. Int, it say I want to store a variable. For example, I am, for example, 36 years old. I want to say age, say 36. And if you in Visual Studio, if you want to duplicate a line of code, you can press Ctrl plus D. Okay, I say press H and press F5. Okay, say 36. Okay, it's so easy. We will understand. We will understand and how we can define a variable. First of all, you should say what type of this variable type in C# you want to use. For example, at the first item I use string, in the second I use int. For the boolean, you can say bool, for example, is true and give the value of, for example, false. Okay, now I want to print in the output, for example, Control C, Control V, and press F5. Okay, say false. And for the char, we say I want to define a variable of type char, and for char you should use under single quotation and give a one character. Okay, it's got an underline. Okay, when you are for example writing an application, you cannot have two variable with the same name. Okay, you should, for example, here say char1. Okay, and say, hey, print it in the output, for example, char1. Okay, okay, I press F5. Okay. Now I told you C# is a strongly data type. It means you should define your program, and you have to say what variable you want to store in the variable type. There is another way that you can define a variable, and there is no need, and it's not necessary to say, hey, for example, I want bool, I want char, I want decimal, float, int, and string. Okay, it's easy. It's the special key, and we say var. What is var? For example, I say name and say Jose. If you put semicolon, let me say in the programming, you should put semicolon at the end of line to say the CLR that, hey, it's the end of my line. Okay, what happened? What's the difference between these two? For example, name. For example, let me say name with, let me say with var, and name, for example, with string. If I say here string, and if I say string, say put var, and if I do something, okay. Now, if you press F5, the program work, and you won't get any error, because what's the difference? What's the difference between var? It's worked for string. No, you can use it for all of the existing variable type in C#. What is var? Okay, var is not dynamic. One of the programmers say, hey, var is dynamic. No, no, no. The var will understand what data type, what the variable type you want to use. For example, here you are saying var in double quotation. The compiler, when you run the program, will understand, hey, you are using a string. Okay. If you put something like this, okay, for example, something like this, and say, it will notice you are saying, hey, I am using a number. It will understand, hey, you are using a number. Okay, when you should use var and when you should use the string in. When the return type of an item is so important for you, hey, please use string variable type, for example, string in, float, list, array, okay, and something like this. But when the return type is not important for you, use var. And sometimes the return type of an item. For example, you don't know what is the return type. Here you use var and say, hey, let me understand what is the return type of, for example, this line. Okay, that's the difference between var and the variable type. I will suggest you use, for example, var, but there are some situations that you should use variable type. Okay, it's so important. Okay, okay, let's talk about the implicit and explicit. Okay, now I'm not using var because I wanna help you to understand the C sharp very strongly, and after that you can use okay, var. Suppose I have a variable of type int and its age. Okay, and it's a variable okay, and I have a float, okay, of type, for example, age2. Okay, and I say age. Okay, well, let me give an example. In C sharp, if you want here, you define a variable, okay, and you want to give the value of this variable to the another variable, you should use the name of the variable put in the value of the age2, okay, in the other item. Okay, here I will share you a document that say what's the main size of the data type in C sharp. For example, int, how many memory it can use, float, a string, and all of them. Okay, I will share you in this in this in the comment of this video. Okay, and here I have int is smaller than float, and when you store the age into float, you won't get any error. And if you press console right line and press hey h2, okay, you run the program, you won't get any error. But what will happen if we do something like this? Okay, for example, we are defining a variable of type float, and float is larger than the int, and we want to store the value of age2 into the uh, int, and the variable name is age. Okay, we will get an red line. It say, hey, cannot implicitly convert type float to an explicit conversion exists. Are you missing a cast? It's so important. Many of programmers get confused when they are talking about implicit and explicit. I'm saying that the implicit is automatically, explicit is manually. Implicit when you are working, that implicit when you want to store a value that is smaller than another item that is larger than this, it is implicit. But when you are for example, you want to an item like this, h2 is float, and float is larger than int. Okay, you are storing a large into a smaller. It's completely wrong, and you will get a red line. That's the reason, and we call it implicit. Wow, and why? What should we do in situation like this? Can I do something like this? For example, okay, we can say convert. Okay, convert that to int, and this is the okay, it stop. Okay, what is it? It is a method. Okay, in the episode 5 on this course, we will talk about the method and function in C sharp. Okay, don't pay attention to this uh, method. Okay, just memorize it, that if you want to do an explicit, just use convert that the name of the, for example, int, you should use convert to int though, int 32. And for example, for float, okay, and everything like this. Okay, and here if you press F5, okay, it say you won't get any error. Okay, let me give you another example. For example, I told you that the char is smaller than int. Let me say char, for example, say name, and say char is one character, h, for example, something like this, and say int age, let me say age3, and say name. Okay, okay, and if you press 5, okay, you will get, oh, so I'm sorry, h3 name, and the name is 3. Okay, what will happen here? That's the ASCII code of name here is 3, and the 3 in ASCII code is 51, and it will store it in h3. Okay, if we want, we have situation like this, for example int for example h4, and use for example 51, and we have a char, and we say name 2, and we want to store h4 here. We will got an error, say cannot, because the int is larger than the char. You should do some casting, and we call it explicitly casting, we call it manually casting. What should we use? You can, in the first item, you should use convert to int 32, but can we use, for example, something like this, for example, convert that to char, and do this, and if you press 5, you will get 3, because 51 is the ASCII code. For example, 51 you are storing in the chart, it will go and get the 51. Hey, what's the 51 in for example in the chart? It say, hey, it's 3. Okay, it's so easy. And this is the explicit and implicit casting. I know it's some confused, but if you have any question, put a comment and ask me which section is confused for you. And in the last, we are talking about the operator, arithmetic operator, comparison, logical, and all of them. Let's start about, some coding about the operator. Okay, the last section, operator. I told you that we are using operator to perform some operation on the variable and the value. I told you we have 4 type of operator: arithmetic, assignment, comparison, and logical. If you take a look here, arithmetic, that the operator that we use, for example, for math action. Assignment, we are using to assign a value or an item to another one. Comparison, we are using them to compare 2 items together. For example, this one is larger than other, or smaller than, or they are equal. And the logical. Let's start with arithmetic. For example, you have a variable number 1 and give 25. And you have another variable and say number 2. And we want to have another number 3, and we are saying, hey, we want to use an arithmetic operator. For example, I told you we have, if you want to put a comment, use double uh, slash, and use, I told you, back, plus, minus, times, and division. Here I'm saying number 1 plus number 2. And here I'm saying that they use plus. He's saying number 1 is 25 plus number 2 is 25. We get the 50 in the output. Let's print it in the output. What we will get is number 3. If you press F5, you will get 50. If you use, for example, times, you will get, for example, 625. They are arithmetic operator. Let's talk about the assignment operator. They are here. Suppose, for example, here this is an assignment. You are give the value of 25 to number 1. Here another assignment operator. And if you use, for example, what is this? It's new. Number 2 plus equal 5. What if you print number 2 in the output? In your opinion, what will we get in the output? For example, maybe you say, hey, number 2 is 25, and here we don't use any arithmetic operator, and is here, and we will get 25. Let's run the program. Here you see we get 30. What happened? Here is equal to this. For example, you are saying, hey, number 2 is equal here. And here we have plus. It means, hey, number 2, okay, plus 5 is say plus add 5 to number 2 and put it in number 2. Okay, for this reason, number 2 is 25 and plus 5 is get 30. Okay, and in the output we will get 30. What happens if we say, for example, hey, number 2 division equal 5? It's like this. Hey, 25 divide by 5, we will get, okay, 5. And in the output, we will get 5. It's the assignment operator. What is the comparison operator? Okay, and they are here. Okay. You have a situation that in the next episode, the episode uh, if I'm not, the episode 3 we are talking, episode 2 we are talking about the conditional statement for each and switch. What is the conditional statement? In the next episode we will talk about the conditional statement and situation that you want to compare two situation together and you have to put a condition, and we are using if and else. I don't want to get into that. Okay. Just give an example. In the next episode, we will talk about, for example, we are saying, hey, if it's a conditional, if, else, we will talk about later. Okay, say, hey, if number 1 equal number 2, print they are equal. Okay, and person 5, we will get 5. Okay, why what's happening here? Why say number 1 is 25. Okay, number 2 is 25. They are equal. By why we cannot see they are equal in the output? What happened? Hey, here I told you, compiler, when you run the program and you press F5, the compiler run the program line after another line. Okay, here you are saying, hey, number 2 divide by 5, and you will get here, hey, number 2 is number 2 is not 25, is here. It will get if let me put it here. Okay, Control X. Here you can see the number 2 is 5. Okay, that's the reason that they are not equal. Okay, if I put here and convert it to an, yeah, and now you can see, hey, they are equal. Okay, that's the reason that happened, and that we couldn't see that they are equal. Okay, the other one is something like this. Suppose, let me, okay, it say, hey, if they are not equal, it say, the previous one say, if they are equal, type they are equal. If they are not equal, okay, it means not. In programming, it means not. Don't forget. Okay, and the other one is, for example, hey, for example, you are saying, if number 1 is greater than number 2, print they are equal. If number 1 is smaller than number 2, print they are, for example, smaller. Okay, and they'll here, what is this? Okay, remember I told you plus equals, sorry, plus, if you remember here, I told you number 2 divide equal means number 2 divide by 5, and after that put the result in number 2. Okay, here it say if number 1 is greater than number 2 or equal to number 2, print they are equal. Okay, Suppose here, if I press F5, you will see they are equal. Why? Because number 1 is 25, number 2 is 5, and the number 1 is greater than number 2. For this reason, we saw it's it print they are equal. Okay, and they are the comparison operator, and the last one is the logical operator. Suppose you have a situation that you want to check two conditions. In the episode 2 we will talk about the condition, don't worry. Okay, for example, say and the number, say number 1, number 2, and we say, hey, if number 1 is greater than number 2, okay, this is the comparison operator. This is a comparison operator, but this one is a logical operator. Okay, let me write logical equal. Okay, and we have another one is, we call it in .NET and program, we call it and we call this or. Okay, for and the both side of the condition should be true. If the both side are true, we will get true. If one of the side are false, we will get false. Okay, here number 1 is greater than, here you see, you cannot see they are equal. Why? Because number 1 is greater than number 2. Number 1 is 25, number 2 is 5. Okay, the first part is equal. Okay, the number 1 is equal to number 2. No. Why? Because number 1 is 25, number 2 is 5. They are not equal. That's the reason that you cannot see they are equal in the output. Okay, if I change it to or, I told you, or is completely reverse by and. Okay, it's completely different. Okay, in the end, I told you both sides should be true. If both sides are true, we will get true. If one side is false, we will get false. Okay. What about or? Okay, what about or? If one side is true, it's true. Okay. Okay. Here, if we press F5, you see they are equal. Okay, they are so easy. If you like this video, if it was easy for you, please subscribe my channel, and in the next episode we will talk about the conditional statement for each and switch. In this channel I want to make easy programming for you. Okay, I want to make it easy for you and change it like playing games. Okay, thank you for listening to me, and good